You are now watching Maine Wire TV with your host, Tom Shattuck, featuring Maine Wire Editor-in-Chief Steve Robinson and the indispensable John Featherston.
All right, joining us today is Seamus Othot and John Featherston. I'm Tom Shattuck. Steve Robinson will be joining us in just a few. We've got a lot to get to today. Some stuff is broken kind of more this afternoon, along with a lot of things this morning. And so let's reel through them first. Graham Platner has taken to a podcast to stand by and defend his Nazi tattoo. He was on the podcast that's run by Mehdi Hassan and says Platner reversed his stance on the tattoo, saying it was an eminently reasonable skull and crossbones. And so there we go. It's kind of astounding, John, because you get away from the scandal. Somehow you're getting a pass and you face plant right back into it. That's some bad amateur hour stuff right there.
So it's reasonable to have a Nazi tattoo for 20 years that you covered up and that you denied was a Nazi tattoo, even though you're a World War II expert.
Yes.
Like, I mean, what is it? I mean, this, in years gone past, this would be the end of the Platner campaign. I don't think this will be the end of the Platner campaign in 2026, but this is admitting now that he has lied multiple times to the national media, to the local media, and that he did know that this was a Nazi tattoo, and it's all okay because, it's eminently reasonable. I mean, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, well, Seamus, the thing that's even most, first of all, that he's got a Nazi tattoo is unbelievable thing one. That he had it for 20 years is unbelievable thing two. That he had it and then while having it decided to run for United States Senate is number three. And then he steps in it, okay? And his campaign is all but over last fall. And now he willingly revives this scandal, Seamus, totally unnecessary, and now it's fresh again.
It's absolutely hilarious. It does seem like a totally unforced error. He could have tried to get this thing to go away better, and I think that he actually had largely succeeded in getting this to go away. And to my memory, I'm pretty sure he previously said, yeah, it was a Nazi tattoo, it was stupid, I didn't know at the time, and then I learned. And now this is saying, now it seems like he's totally walking that back and saying at no point was it ever a Nazi tattoo. So we have it does seem like to some extent politicians, I'm surprised this is so much the case for him because he's younger, but in general it seems like politicians have still not grasped the idea of internet information staying there and being a lot more readily accessible than it used to be. You can't pull I said one thing to one person, then I turn around and say the other thing as easily now because people can just pull up the receipts.
Or John, did people see it and they're just so used to it now they're desensitized to severe hypocrisy, and so it's not the political crime it used to be.
That's been the one takeaway from this whole campaign that I just don't understand is people are so quick to discount it. Now, granted, I've said on Maine Wire TV a couple times, if his defense from day one would have been, hey, I was drunk, I was, hanging out with my buddies, and I got the tattoo, and I realized, 2 years later that, that was a stupid thing to do, and I got rid of it, or I covered it up, or I had it removed, I would have been fine with that answer. I wouldn't have, said this is a reason for me to support him or anything, but I'd be fine with the answer because it kind of makes chronological sense. This now, get it, deny it, lie about it, cover it up, and now come back and say, well, it's really not a big deal. This is just bizarre behavior. And if this is the type of behavior that he's going to display on the United States Senate, I mean, this should be a warning sign to people. I say it all the time. When people tell you who they are, believe them. And this is another sign of he's telling you who he is. He's going to be a flip-flopper. He's not going to be a man of convictions and stuff like that. Because, to Seamus's point, this could have easily gone away, and now it's back.
Yeah, they usually wait till they're in office to show that they don't care about their promises on campaign. But Graham Platner is breaking some new ground by just throwing out everything, seeing what sticks, denying himself all the way on his way to try to win the seat.
Persistence keeps on giving, though. Yeah.
As you wrote about, John, the Janet Mills enters Senate race under a growing cloud of fraud allegations and federal scrutiny. The race is really getting underway now. Okay, so isn't it time, if you're Mills now, John, don't you start bringing this stuff up? She is way behind in polling.
Oh, she's going to have to, because as we're doing this Maine Wire TV, President Trump is signing an executive order to officially make the fraud commission real and put J.D. Vance in charge. So the spotlight's going to be shined on Maine, unfortunately, because there's so much fraud here. She's going to need something to distract from that, and she's going to have to start hitting Platner. The both of them act like they're running against Susan Collins right now, and that kind of makes a little bit of sense now, early on. But the fact of the matter is, both of them have to secure that nomination. Mills, if she's called to testify in front of Congress, she's going to do horribly, as I've said before. So I think that this is an opportunity for her, not that I want to give her any friendly advice, but opportunity for her now to kind of, move that spotlight off of her a little bit and go, hey, let's talk about the Nazi.
You think that would be the email pitch, right, Steve, is that you say, okay, now Graham Platner can't win. He's a Nazi. He's doubled down on his Nazi stuff. He can't beat Susan Collins in the general. Now you need me. I'm the governor with a track record, yada, 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 management, yada, yada. You know me. When does she, launch torpedoes at this guy, Steve?
I think the primary comes down to really two dynamics. One, who can play to the Trump derangement syndrome side of the equation that we talked about last week, like who can pick a high profile fight with Trump, or give the promise of sticking it to Trump the most. So they're both kind of competing in that lane. And then the other lane is, who can pander to the migrant industrial complex the hardest. Those are the two lanes where they're competing for this primary vote. We're not talking about like a normal political process here. Politics as usual. I mean, it doesn't usually apply here. I would be surprised to see Mills come out here and be as, I guess like direct and confrontational with her attacks on Graham Platner as you see in the Republican side. I think that'll probably be handled by proxies. And they'll both try to take like this high road approach. I mean, even Platner, you haven't really seen him, dirty up the governor or talk about any of the fraud in the state or even Chinese marijuana. There's lots of low-hanging fruit that's been out there for him to take. He hasn't really taken it because they tend to settle their disagreements using proxies or behind the scenes. So I don't think that she's necessarily going to come out and launch salvos at him as much as she's going to criticize Trump. Like she wants to fight with Trump over Medicaid fraud. She wants to fight with TV doctor Dr. Oz. She wants to have another moment where she's standing up saying, "I'll see you in court." Like she still hasn't stopped talking about that. It's really sad. She's like the drunk guy at the bar who's talking about his high school games in the 50s. I could have been a contender. Yeah. I was a state champ once. I told Trump once that I would see him in court. She's still clinging to that. But that's because that's how this primary will be defined. They want somebody who's going to spit on Trump and take care of the migrants.
But she's 20 points behind him right now. Can she afford to look past him? I mean, he can afford to look past her right now, but doesn't she have to rough him up a little bit?
I think she can do this through proxies. I don't know that she's going to do it herself. And maybe it'll be campaign communications, but I think you'll probably start to see things like, we need tested leadership. We need a steady hand, even if there is DTs there, it's a steady hand. But they need, I don't think you're going to see her come out and specifically say, this guy's a Nazi. Look at this. The guy's got a Nazi tattoo. Like, I just don't know that that's the way they settle things on that side of the family. I think that would probably be the most effective thing, would be for her to say what John was just saying, like, look, we need somebody who can beat Susan Collins, and I'm the one who doesn't have a Nazi tattoo. I might be, losing to the guy 20 or 30 points right now in the primary polls. However, wait until it's the general election and you have $45 million in national Republican Senate campaign money coming in and just dominating the airwaves with the tattoo that Graham Platner says, man, not really that big of a deal. I shouldn't have apologized. It was just a run-of-the-mill skull and bones. When, it's the Totenkopf,
Yes.
like it's the most, viral, recognizable sign of the Nazis that exists in the historical record or
Yeah.
in pop culture other than the swastika.
Yeah, it's the most carefully considered Nazi tattoo there is. Really, it's
Yes.
So
It's actually it's like a very nuanced Nazi tattoo. It's for the the Nazi tattoo haver who's like can't go full swastika, but just needs to go just like a little bit, just kind of like a coded message.
John, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's got this tattoo, a Khmer Rouge tattoo, a Stalin tattoo, an Idi Amin tattoo. Do these voters, these ultra progressive voters, care, or is Steve right? This is just about him beating up Trump.
Having been to a lot of his campaign events, I'm just shocked that people will talk to me as I'm walking in the door. I'll talk to anybody. And people are like, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. I've flat out asked people, well, do you have any friends or family that are Jewish? It might be a big deal to them. No, it's not a big deal. It was a mistake he made. That's not the person he is anymore. But today he shows you that is the person that he is. Yeah. So.
Yeah, he's going to stop apologizing for this, or maybe he already has. But the moment he's elected, this tattoo is coming back. He's going to have a car, have graphics on it. So anyway, but the big threat is Trump's the evil Trump, and whatever it takes to push back against Trump. Seamus, you wrote about the Trump administration threatening to cut off funding for Maine's prison system after we've talked. You've written extensively about having men be confined in cells with women, harassing women allegedly, and doing all sorts of ungodly things. And there's been some news, an update.
Yeah, so I reached out to the prison, and shockingly, they responded this time. I was asking about some allegations that I'm not going to talk about here, but in the response to that email, they denied the allegations, and they proved that the allegations were false. And then they showed me official communications from the DOJ saying, oh yeah, the funding that Pam Bondi got up and declared triumphantly that they had cut because they were housing men with women was actually quietly restored. And there was no press about that. I searched around. I don't think that it ever got any coverage from anyone. I think both sides strangely kept it quiet. After a little bit more inquiry, so it looks like it was 3 grants that were cut, and then they were restored way back in June. So they were only gone from April till June, and I don't know if they were even cut long enough to make a difference to the funding. But regardless, they're back, the funding's back, and Andrew Balser, a convicted murderer, 310-pound, 6-foot-tall man, is allegedly sexually harassing females.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on. Sorry. Did you say 310 pounds?
Yeah, so when we originally started covering him, he was 245 pounds, and a more recent check on his inmate profile shows that he has ballooned to 310 pounds. They have yet to upgrade.
What are they feeding him? What are they feeding this guy?
3 squares a day, huh?
Does the woman's prison serve 4 squares? Oh my God! Did he get type 2 diabetes? You buried the lead, Seamus. Holy hell!
Yeah, they have yet to update his photo on the inmate registry, so I'm waiting with bated breath on that. But yeah, so I reached out to the DOJ, and they have not responded to explain why the funding was cut. That was days ago now, and they still haven't responded. The MDOC gave me a very basic explanation saying that they were restored because they appealed the decision to cancel them, and the appeal was granted. I don't know who granted the appeal. I don't really know. They didn't explain any of that, and it's certainly not clear from the emails sent from the DOJ. Those are very bare bones, just a direct, your funding is restored.
So for whatever reason, Steve, it looks like another check swing from Pam Bondi.
Well, that's what I was thinking. That's exactly where my brain went. Let's do a press conference or a Fox News hit and declare victory, but not have any actual follow through.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I shouldn't say funny, but the irony is that when the initial request to withhold the funding was made, they cited Andrew Balser. They cited the story of this individual who the Maine Wire broke the story on originally of him being moved into the women's prison. And it just happened that right before we learned about this grant funding, we'd had a follow-up report that Seamus wrote based on a prisoner who'd been confined with Balser. Did not know, though, 310 pounds. That's...
Yep.
Woo!
Okay. Can we dig down more on how do you gain 60 pounds in prison? I mean,
that's the new part of the investigation. I mean, that's like a cold case podcast. But Andrew Balser's running around that women's prison saying that he'll put babies in the female prisoners, but it seems like he might have eaten a few. I mean, holy hell.
Well, is that how they pay each other in snacks and treats, though? Is that a part of currency? And like, he really is the kingpin
on the mess hall supply chain somewhere, John. Absolutely, he has made sure that he's benefiting. But
I mean, we need a review of the calorie intake. He's stealing someone's food. Maybe that's part of the strategy is to get into the women's prison, and then you can really boss them around and steal their desserts. I don't know, but we need a health and wellness check on this guy.
This may be why they had to restore the funding, because they couldn't keep up with the food budget anymore.
Right? See, Balser already ate it. Sorry. Holy cow. But imagine, though, that if the woman who wrote us the letter is accurately conveying her circumstances, she's in an overcrowded cell with 5 other people, and one of them is 310 pounds, 6'2", Andrew Balser, who brutally stabbed his parents and dog to death, and then called up the police and said, "You might want to come get me. I've been naughty."
Oh, it's gonna be a lot of fun being in that confined cell with that thing.
And on those allegations, I gave the MDOC ample time to deny those allegations, and they have not commented on them.
Which is interesting too, because the allegations also included some bizarre behavior on the part of corrections officers, like corrections officers laughing at the woman when she complained about what she was experiencing.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. It's just when you hear about the Trump administration doing that, that's straight up disappointment, because in the very least, we were supposed to restore sanity, and to be playing this game and playing right along with these people in the prisons is just, or in the schools anywhere, is just disgusting. Which brings us.
Well, it also another element of it, Tom. Before we move on, is that this just shows a disadvantage that conservatives play at when they try to impose a conservative-minded reform agenda, is that they don't control the fourth branch of government, the administrative state. And so there's this big, complex Leviathan built up where there are processes that, like a guy like Trump isn't necessarily going to understand, that there's, all of these rules and nitty-gritty details, and he can't be required to know the bureaucracy.
Yep.
So it's not as simple as saying, yes, do this. This is the policy that we have now. Here's the executive order. There's also the implementation level, and the progressives have gotten very good at embedding themselves in the institutions and then just waiting you out. And so that's a case where we have, we're like a year and a half into the Trump administration, and what should have been a very easy policy, a policy that a majority of Americans voted for, is still just being, delayed forever, not carried into fruition.
Well, yeah, and that's why, we talked last Friday about the Doge guy, and how good he was at finding DEI stuff, but the establishment doesn't want to cede any ground. They don't want to contract at all. They just grow and grow and grow and grow. Like you said, they're activists, and they will scream bloody murder if you do anything to anything in Washington. The only change that can be made is things can expand. That's it. So now we're just absolutely. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to do because these people consider these jobs their jobs. They don't consider themselves custodians of the desks and things. They consider it their jobs, which is why they all raise hell when they get fired and have standing ovations when they leave, because nobody ever leaves. John, that's part of, you've been in government, John, in state government. You've seen the rot.
So many times in government, I would go to meetings and be like, okay, like you want to add these 3 positions, blah, blah. Show me positions you cut. What do you mean? Like, what do school budget cuts or public safety school budgets that you go to. And well, we didn't cut any programs. We just want to grow programs. It's like, it's not sustainable. Especially in Massachusetts with Prop 2.5, you can't add 30 positions and you have to cut to add. No. And they just with wide-eyed innocence, they look at you like, well, you figure it out. You figure it out. You make the math work. You can't make the math work.
No, they consider decreasing the level of increase a cut. And they'll
exactly.
and they'll complain about that. It's just it's a tough one, but this is what happens. This is why you don't create a huge bureaucratic state. And you're right. These people, they've been through plenty of presidents. They know there's another one coming in a few years, and it's like this embedded insurgency, and they kind of have nothing to lose. Which is why I wish that we could reconstitute the Doge boys. You know what, Steve? Maybe something in some kind of AI will be able to make the mathematics inarguable to normal Americans and say, you don't need these 10,000 people.
Well, we actually recorded an episode of the Robinson Report earlier today with Garrett Mason, one of the Republicans running for Maine governor. We talked a little bit about AI and noted that the governor, very early on to the development of AI, issued an executive order banning its use by government employees. And we were kind of questioning whether this was, she doesn't really know what AI is. And it was, classic, like, no, don't do innovation. We don't want innovation. Or does she know exactly what AI is and how many government jobs could be replaced by a cleverly written Python script or a ChatGPT script? And this is like a don't kill the job thing where state government, we're going to be 10 years down the road from now, and almost all of state government will have been totally obviated by AI routines that we could set up and run safely. But the state employees union will still be around and still be protecting jobs. Nobody will be able to be fired. And the state employees will have like the nicest, most secure jobs in the state that can't be AI'd into oblivion because they've got the union. They've got political people who are willing to protect them.
Yeah.
I mean, like you look at what we've done as an organization with Medicaid fraud. I mean, I'm like a monkey slapping at a typewriter when it comes to this tech stuff. And we've been able to find more no bid corruption fraud and no bid contract corruption and fraud and Medicaid fraud indicators, at least, than the Mills administration has made public over 8 years. It's like this stuff has become a lot easier to identify and find. It's harder for them to hide in complexity. It's harder for them to, obscure what's going on in large data files and control the narrative because you can use these tools to really understand massively complex systems. Yeah. And there's no reason why HHS shouldn't be doing that. Like they absolutely should adopt AI tools. They can give them to the existing employees and then let them hunt for fraud. You could detect Gateway Community Services as it's happening in real time. And just like 1 month into it, you could just go and look at them and be like, hey, all of your billing looks totally different from the billing of everybody else in this same code. Why is that?
Especially if you're inside the tent and you don't have to worry about freedom of access forms or anything like that. My goodness, you could clean it up in a second. But I mean, Seamus, that's the whole game. But they don't want to clean it up in a second. It's much like the longshoremen's union guy, who was against robotics at any of the docks, and these are union jobs. We don't want robots there. It's simply about giving people. It's a jobs program. All these state hack jobs, many of them are just jobs programs.
If you took over, if you had a Republican governor and a conservative commissioner for the Department of Health and Human Services, and you took the central voter registration file and you gave it to the Department of Health and Human Services and let them query the non-citizen Medicaid data against the voter registration file, you could find any non-citizens who are receiving Medicaid and also registered to vote. You could do that in about 2 hours. And that includes the time that it takes to, call everybody and brag about how smart you are and how funny it is that there are, 20,000 illegal aliens voting in Maine's elections.
John, we in Massachusetts, when I was at the old Boston Herald a few years back, we had the computers of many state offices, of many departments in the state of Massachusetts. Some of them were still, this is 10 years ago, still green screen. Some of them were essentially running on Windows 98. And the thing is, that's just the way they wanted it. Move nice.
Absolutely.
I really like the total technological incompetence that the state officials have. Like, one of my favorite things looking through audit records was when auditors received a mysterious flash drive from one of the allegedly fraudulent home care businesses twice. This happened twice, actually, from the same business. They just popped that thing right in, popped it right into the computer. No potential security risks there. Just put it in. Oh, it doesn't work. Whoops. Can you send me another one? Sorry, that one gave me an error message. Like, come on.
Here's
Right into the state computer.
If there was someone looking to slip some malware into, the director of operations computer, Seamus found the way. Just send him a thumb drive. Apparently, they're plugging those babies.
Walk around, tossing them outside on the ground, and hope somebody picks them up, and then someone will.
So, moving over to the Maine Wire, so the Facebook post, a featured book at J.A. Leonard Middle School, RSU 34, teaches students about kinks like being a leather daddy and being peed on. This is what young children have access to in Maine schools. There's a couple of images there. I mean, John, did you learn about being a leather daddy when you were going to elementary school? Because I don't think I did.
I guess I was an abused child. No, I didn't get to learn about this. How, Tom, I don't know how, if I was a parent and I knew this book was in the school, I don't know. I can't even begin to imagine how I would react. Because the first thing I'd do is I'd get in the car, I would go to the library, I would go pull the book up, and then I would take it to the superintendent's office and go explain this to me. And I have placed calls to the superintendent's office about this book. I haven't got a call back yet. But I don't care what your sexual preference is. Is this appropriate material for 11-year-old in school? No. I think the common sense answer is no. And like, the checks and balances here, from the school committee to the school librarian to, I bet you, this, the kids all talk about this book. It's a banned book. So, like any 11-year-old, don't look at that. What's the first thing they do? They go and look at it, right? Like any 11-year-old does and stuff like that. So everybody knows this book exists, yet it's still there. How is that possible?
Well, we've got the subtitle on the book, The Young Reader's LGBTQIA plus Dictionary of Lingo and Colloquial Phrases, because it seems like that's the sort of information they need now to understand their teachers, probably, given the way that the things that they're teaching them now and who the teachers are. But
I understand the leather, that, like, I like a nice leather jacket, but the whole being peed on thing, there's a limit to my empathy and my sympathy and my moral imagine. I just can't imagine the whole being peed on thing. I guess that's where I draw the line.
Well, it is interesting because just from my own experience living in a nice blue state here, these books are everywhere in the schools. They're everywhere in the public library. I took my kids to see a magician in our public library, and in was the leather zipper mask books right there next to the kids section. And these people take your kids or want to take your kids on these gender journeys. It's really something that's really there. Yeah. So, and we're the ones who are being inhumane by questioning them, when really, like, get your freak stuff away from kids. We used to know this, like we used to know to not be doing this. I know a guy who saw an old man walking towards a bunch of kids in a playground, and aggressively got the guy in a hold, which was overkill. And I said, like, why did you do that? And he said, well, because who knew what they were going to do to the kids? Well, now we're at the point where you can peddle smut to kids. And Steve, when you used to be on my George Soros radio show, we would talk about this every week because Maine was happening every week in Maine. Like, what is it doing for somebody to hand a kid porn? Like, who's getting a rise out of that?
Well, I mean, for one, the Bangor Bear, which I encourage people not to Google, but Seamus will remember that one.
Luckily, so I think that it is one of my great services to the state that I bullied this guy into deleting his X account, but he is a current DHHS Health and Human Services child protective worker who, on the side, sometimes on the way home from work, makes gay porn and posts it. Or did.
Yes, he's a solo artist for the most part, Tom. But yeah, there does seem to be some weird dynamic here where adults are living out their kinks. But this is a very specific. There's a very specific legislative provision that came about in the 70s in Maine that exempts the provision of this kind of material to kids in schools as like academic or art. I guess there was a fear amongst people that you would give, somebody would show like the statue of David or something to a kid, and that would be ruled indecent. So even at that time, they were still thinking like, geez, that's kind of racy, the statue of David. Like, let's carve out an exemption for that, so they know that when we're talking about not giving porno to kids, we're not talking about art and things of educational value. State Senator Jim Libby had a bill that would have repealed that exemption, and Democrats fought tooth and nail. No way are you going to take away the ability to provide genderqueer to the 7th graders and 6th graders. So they're really committed to this. They really want these books in schools, and I think it's just a big missed opportunity. Some people are worried about they wish they bought Bitcoin in 2014 or something like that. I wish that I'd written one of these creepy porn books 5 years ago. Imagine the money that they're minting on a book that's like required reading in every left-wing school, all the public schools. All these people are getting wildly rich writing just, puke, just like left-wing pablum.
Yeah, it is one of the most concerning aspects how desperate they are to show these to kids. It's not like it's like a pathological desperation demonstrated by no one else in the field over anything. Like, even when people get really riled up and they want to put the 10 Commandments back into a schoolroom, like, those people aren't this insistent. This is like their number one obsession. This is the top priority, is getting kids to see this stuff.
Yeah, Seamus, they treat this like it's life and death. And a lot of them will tell you it's life and death. If it doesn't see themselves in a way sexualized, if they don't see themselves, then who knows what self-harm the student might do. But Seamus, you're right. Like we've got a story right now about parents suing because they want the Pledge of Allegiance read in the school. Good luck with that. Like, if you first have to take the leather gender queer books out of the school, if that's then it seems to me, John, that the Pledge of Allegiance is eons away. Those days seem over.
Well, I was going to say, where does this have we reached the apex of this craziness, or is this just the first floor of this? I mean, where does it stop from here? Because we talk about it, we hear from a lot of people, we hear all the time, this is totally unacceptable. It's not, but we get a new story about it every week, if not every day. Seamus or I will, get a tip or something about this. And now you have to sue to have the Pledge of Allegiance, or, fly American flag in your classroom. I mean, they are winning. They are winning. That you cannot deny that they are winning. But when does it finally stop, though, is what my question is.
Yeah,
I think it's going to have to be the market is what's going to decide this, not any pitched political battles at school boards. The schools are going to continue to suffer from an enrollment crisis, in my view. They never recovered from their pre-COVID levels. A lot of people who tried out homeschooling or pod schooling or private schooling decided that they liked it that way. And now with the AI tools that are coming out, They're going to make it easier than ever for self-directed, family-directed education to happen. So the competition to the public school system is developing in really fast, innovative ways that respond to what parents want and what kids want. Meanwhile, the public school system is just like focused on being a transvestite factory. Like
Right.
and there are going to be options. The cost of those options are going to decrease, and pretty soon schools are going to look around and be like, "Holy cow! There's we're at 50%, 40% of the enrollment that we were at just 10 years ago. We got to rethink this a little bit."
But Steve, school districts aren't going to adopt the AI that's going to replace them. So
the parents will. The parents will.
Homeschool will opt out of the districts altogether and just use AI to teach them.
Absolutely. We're at a point now where you can develop parent-directed AI programs that respond to a child's learning ability and will tell you, Johnny's his trig is weak, but he's good with algebra, so tomorrow we're going to do a little bit more trig. And there will be very, very good structured AI tools. I think probably within 6 months, within 9 months, if you were clever enough with the AI platforms we have now, you could design one yourself. But I think that will be, over the next 3 years, that is going to dramatically reduce the cost of private education alternatives to the point where you could have, like 4 or 5 people running an entire private school with, a couple dozen kids in it. I think that it's going to place real pressure on the public school system to straighten things out. Like all they'd have to do is just don't be politicized and crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that, and people will still like the free public school.
Yeah,
I wonder if we're going to. Sorry.
Entire child. Remember, it's social and emotional learning. It's not just the arithmetic in English. Go ahead, Seamus.
I wonder if we're going to see a push from lawmakers to try to crack down or stop this happening, like to try to push more kids to have to go to the public schools in response to this.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, absolutely. They've done it. They've tried it before.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. There's a state right now, and I forgot which one it is, where the State Bar Association has legislation out there to make it illegal to use AI for law contract solutions. So, definitely, they are joining the battle.
Yeah, that one is a little bit different, I think. But I see where you're going. It's the classic longshoremen's union play of, protect the incumbent industry. Like don't allow Model Ts because we want to protect the horse husbandry. Don't allow email because protect the traditional letter industry.
I don't even mean. Sorry.
No, I was just saying over time that fails. Like the innovative technology is going to prevail. You can't stop it. You can't try to preserve some kind of sector of the economy just because there's innovation is happening fast. But there will be those political campaigns by state lawmakers to, they'll call it, child abuse. Let it, if you're trying to teach your kid with some kind of artificial intelligence product, they'll consider that child abuse. If Child Protective Services knocking on your door and saying, "Hey, look, little Jenny here is not getting enough leather daddy and pee material. We're dragging her off to the public school to get properly educated." Yeah.
Well, don't put it past them to flood the zone with corrupt agents as well.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Seamus.
Oh, I just wonder, even more than just the technological aspect, as more and more kids start leaving, whether for private school or for more home-directed AI teaching agents, if they're just going to see that as a huge failing in their ability to indoctrinate more kids in this stuff and push hard to get kids back, just even from that angle. Because right now, even with after COVID rates of public school attendance dropping, it's still the majority of kids who are in public schools. But what happens when that's not the case? Just from an ideological aspect, they need this to continue. I think it's essential for them to be able to propagate their worldview.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if they were looking at it long term, they might understand that driving the schools into the ground in pursuit of this bizarre fetish politics or whatever fetish culture is undermining the long-term project. But also, I think you'll see a stratification of the economic outcomes. Once you start to see that the alternatives to the public school are graduating kids at a younger age who are better prepared to enter the workforce and produce value, start companies, be innovative, then you're going to see even more economic inequality start to stem from the public school, private school alternative gap. You're already seeing it in some ways.
Well, John, how much of this is an issue really about class? So, for instance, the elites like the leather curriculum in the class. They want the leather books. They want the Gay Straight Alliance room. They want that. These are the elites. These are the same people who last night, won a statue trophy and then went right on to lecture us about how we all need to get better and be more like them. So the elites are not going to want Acme AI, the same one that teaches Steve Robinson's kids, to be teaching their kids. They want to use the woke and noble AI, something different. So until you can discourage the elite class, our betters, then there's always going to be this like perverted curriculum and world view out there, right?
Well, AI only knows what you tell it. So it's going to be fascinating to watch who creates the education AI that Steve is so eloquently saying. Like, who's programming that? And it's probably going to be a lot of woke people, because AI, and Steve is much more of an expert on AI and probably Seamus and you guys than I am, but AI is still pretty woke right now, isn't it, even? So will it get woker?
It's not a bad point. It's not a bad point.
I think it depends on how you're using it. There are already tools available that can take away the biases and weights from any ChatGPT, Claude, even X. You can take away the biases pretty easily.
Yeah, you can.
So I think ultimately the non-censored AI is going to prevail. But there will be deployments of it where people intentionally choose, like, hey, I want the woke AI. Like, I don't want my kid touching that, total truth. My kid can't handle total truth. I want him having leftist truth.
So Steve, parents they'll want, if you write the prompt, you shouldn't make me an illustration of Europeans who, using the miracle of the Enlightenment, went on to build Western civilization. There are parents who want there to be a smattering of diversity in the answer.
I would think so. I mean, that there's a reason why, there's a whole crowd of people who are telling us about, how the Somali diaspora was here in 1776, crossing the Delaware with George Washington, and have been a formative part of building America. There seems to be an audience for that. There seems to be people who really believe that. So if they have the ability to develop their own educational products, I don't know why they wouldn't go from that. And if they're training it just on the existing curriculum, that's what it's going to end up saying anyways. But I would say the alternative is true too, where conservative parents would want to have biblically literate educational materials. You could absolutely develop an AI course for a child to learn like a Bible study, and there would be competing. Because there would be disagreement in the Christian community over how that should be implemented. So I think it cuts both ways. But the big picture, though, is that the education system, like these government bureaucracies, are not prepared for the innovation that's coming. They're going to fight to stop it. So because it's a threat to their jobs or their institution, and that's only going to put them further behind the 8 ball. So the change that's coming is going to be a rapid upheaval. And I think that it actually works to the benefit of conservatives, like the kid we saw and talked about last week, who was using technology to go after DEI programs as part of Doge, because the conservatives are going to be able to think outside those institutions, whereas the left-wing mind view works only within the systems that are going to be crumbling. The sand is they've got sand for a foundation, and it's washing out beneath them.
In Seamus, I think that if you're a conservative up here in a blue state, you teach yourself how to notice the woke sneaking in to your TV shows, into your movies, and to whatever it is you watch, or to your media. You know, all of the print, most of the printed media in Maine, you can tell, oh, somebody's being cute here.
Yeah.
You can tell that this article, this straight up article about it's a Thanksgiving tradition, is not really pro Thanksgiving. In the first, like in the lead, you get the feeling, okay, something's up here. Well, with the AI, you can filter that crap right out here, and so for conservatives, like this is going to be like drinking pure spring water.
Yeah, there are some things now where you just notice it. You'll notice a tell. You won't even get to the actual ideological aspects of it. It'll just be like certain turns of phrases or ways of speaking that'll kind of clue you in, and you'll be on high alert. And so that sort of thing, I don't know if you look at it as a tell. I guess I don't quite know what you mean with filtering out, like filtering existing things for that with AI.
Yes. So when so for instance, if you're reading about the English conquest of the Northeast, and you're finding out there's this context added to everything, that before the English learned to have a constitution, the Cherokee Nation or whatever nation, they actually came up with the Constitution before that, you know. And the tenets that are in the Constitution about, you know, this being a nation of citizens rather of the nobility, that was actually a whatever Iroquois Confederation tenet first. So it's what it does is give you all this PC slop attached to the stuff you need. So you have to pan for gold every time you're getting information.
Yeah,
And
I'd say something like that.
Great.
Something like that, you could I mean, of course, there's always going to be an option where you could read something that's written by a historian who doesn't do that. But if you're reading something like that with AI, you could just really quickly find out hey, give me the variety of historical evidence and opinions on this issue, and then you can look at it yourself, find the sources that gives you, and just really quickly check the information that the book is giving you.
Yeah, that's a great point. You can use it to super vet stuff really, really quickly, which actually makes me wonder, John, do you think people will read your articles in a few years in a new way? Will they just say, take what Featherston wrote here and boil it down to 6 bullet points?
You know, people say, you know, people won't have iPhones in 5 or 10 years because the technology is going to change and everything will be, you know, wearables and everything like that. I think there will be a lot to that, Tom, because things will be concise. I mean, I don't know how you can walk around and read an article on your glasses or on your wristwatch and not, you know, fall into a pothole, especially in Maine where there's potholes everywhere. But yeah, I mean, so I think everything will be condensed. People will get less information even though information is more available. And yeah, I think it's a huge concern.
So let's go to Matt. If you don't mind, can we play the longer of the 2 clips from the Oscars last night? I haven't seen any of these movies. I assume, Steve, you probably have not either.
I didn't even realize the Oscars happened last night.
So this is Thomas Anderson Lee or something. I don't know. He won an Oscar.
Don't know him. We need the sound, Matt.
So, you know what? I've heard this. I can tell you what he says while we wait for it to go. He says essentially that what I want to do is be able to tell my 4 small children that hopefully that I apologize that what we've left you with here as a world. And we hope that maybe you can do a little bit better, which is a remarkable thing to say because, go ahead, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Hey, Matt, bring this down to 3/4 done at the end when he's done. Right there. Perfect.
It's absent, so for the housekeeping mess that we left in this world, we're handing off to them, but also with the encouragement that they will be the generation that hopefully brings us some common sense and decency. My Pearl, Lucy, Jack, and Ida. I love you. Thank you very much.
Stupid. That's a terrible place where I get this free trophy in a gift bag, and you're fabulously rich. I'm sorry, kids. It's like only entered artists who are some of the most small-brained people in the world, Steve, are also the most self-important.
Which of those children he listed off is Leonardo DiCaprio dating?
Not a bad question. Probably give it a couple of years.
You want to get right to the moral character of that institution, the academy. I think they're very ill suited to do something like that. You know, the bloviating moral lecture speech. I don't know exactly when that started at these high-profile award show occasions, but there used to be an element of shock to it, where you weren't expecting them to take some brave moral stand. But now it's just like not even particularly brave. What would have been brave is for him to do like Chappelle did during the first Trump term and come out and do a monologue that was like, hey, let's see how this turns out.
Yeah.
But you don't see any of that kind of like risk taking or countercultural. Like what he did there, just like zero risk, the safest possible thing. He just told everybody like, I'm really worried too. I'm very concerned about this, and I'm a good person. Bye.
Zero risk, Steve. Matt, play the other one we have. This is a guy who's going to tell you that this is not zero risk. These people did a documentary about Vladimir Putin, and guess what, Steve? There are parallels to another country.
Mr. Nobody Against Putin is about how you lose your country. And what we saw when working with this footage, it's that you lose it through countless small little acts of complicity. When we act complicit, when a government murders people on the streets.
Here we go.
When we don't say anything, when oligarchs take over the media and control how we can produce it and consume it.
Have you ever? It's okay. It goes on like that. He's another small brain moron who doesn't know what he's talking about. But when we're complicit, when there's murders in the street, no, actually, you're complicit in the death of fools who are just as foolhardy as you people are, who have decided that you're going to be become a hero because you've entered your own fiction of what's going on with ICE. It's like these people are just midwits, Seamus, and it's the biggest freaking blowhards. Oh,
yeah, I have not seen any of the movies that they're talking about, but I think I've seen a review of the Best Picture winner, and who was the guy who gave the first speech we watched, and I think that his movie, from what I've heard, is largely, at least I think it's largely an anti-ICE allegory.
Yeah, I heard there was one of those.
And so I think that it was impossible for them to give the award to someone else.
You know what's funny? There was a really popular book written a while back, and I say popular, I mean it was popular amongst the NPR crowd, and it was an explicit story of an illegal alien who crossed over the southern border into the United States, and it was a story of trial and heartache and whatever else. And then people found out that it was a white lady who wrote it, and she hadn't actually had those experiences, and so you really put them in a bind. It's kind of it's an interesting paradox for them to be in. There's all kinds of weird thought traps for the left to enter into. Like, can you give that guy an award because he's white? I think he looks white at least. Can you give him an award for making an anti-ICE allegory? Or can you give it to anyone else if he made an anti-ICE allegory? There's so many logic traps you have to walk through when you're doing the Academy Awards.
In 2026, our water is cleaner than it's ever been. Our environment is cleaner than it's been in any of our lifetimes. Let's put it this way. In any of our lifetimes, the water's cleaner, the environment's better, crime is down, the world is safer, the world is richer. So what is this guy talking about? Like, what is like, I'm sorry I left you this mess. What is the mess? That somebody urinated on your kid in the school library? Because that's a mess to me. So what is the mess? It's real easy to go up on stage and everybody's looking at you and say, what is the mess? But I want to push back and say, what is the mess? And if the worst thing in the world right now is ICE, we're living in a pretty good world, I think. You know what I mean? So.
Well, but also, if everything is a mess, and this is really a time for mourning, Why is everybody there getting drunk and going to after parties?
Yeah, well, that's just the thing too. It's like things are so dark that I'm getting an award for making my documentary about authoritarian government.
Right, and I'm going to a room in a place in a restaurant where, by the way, none of you can go. None of you
Yes.
are allowed in. You
Yes.
know, this is you're not allowed to be an illegal alien at the after party I'm going to. This is truly exclusive.
Well, unless you're serving champagne, you know, unless you're passing out $200 bottles of champagne, then you're allowed in on the staff. But otherwise, no, not as a guest.
Seamus, when Steve won that award and he was at the state capitol building and him and John were up there, I don't remember him turning on a dot. And Steve is a guy who's got plenty to say, as a matter of fact. I don't remember him turning on a dime and lecturing everybody on how they need to get better as people. Why is it the theater kids always feel like they have to tell us how to improve our lives?
Because they can't do anything else about it. They get to feel good about themselves, but also realistically, they can't and don't want to make any effort to do anything else. It's just, this is their one outlet to make themselves look good and feel like they're doing good. I think that many of the people who do this really do feel like, yeah, I did a great job today. I get to really pat myself on the back. That was such a good thing that I did. And then they get to go and get drunk and drink their $200 champagne, and they don't have to feel so guilty about being rich, which normally they otherwise would, based on what they say.
You know what it does for me, John Featherston, is it makes me have a lot more respect for Charlie Sheen. Because you got the drug use, you got the womanizing, you got the bad Hollywood behavior, but you never got a lecture with it. You know, he didn't feel the need to like do this weird moral tithing at award ceremonies. He was just rocking and rolling.
Just having fun. Yeah, just having fun. But, you know, I have a question. You know, I think the comment was oligarchy media. So is that a shot at Steve Robinson? And so if the Steve Robinson and the Maine Wire are oligarchs, what is the Washington Post or the New York Times? What is the textbook definition for them then?
Yeah, I doubt the director of Mr. Nobody was thinking about the Maine Wire, but I think that the media has never been more decentralized than it is now, which would be the opposite of oligarchy. I guess they'd probably consider Elon Musk to be an oligarch in control of media, but I think people who have used X before and after understand that it's less controlled than it was before. It's a very real concern. I just wonder, was he concerned about it when there were like 4 companies that controlled all of the TV news? Was he concerned about it when there was less decentralization in the way people consumed information about their political systems? I don't think he was. He just doesn't like the way the culture's heading, right? In my opinion. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this, but while we're talking about pop culture, did you see the video of Ben Stiller out at like a Hollywood Whole Foods or something promoting his soda?
Yes.
Oof. I mean, how beautiful was that?
Man,
it's like a whole grocery store of people, and everyone's like, "Who is that creepy guy over there giving away free samples of soda?"
Yeah, Hollywood is a fickle woman, isn't it, man?
Yeah.
You're right.
We do know to be wary of free samples at grocery stores.
Well, that's true. Yeah, in Bangor, Maine, definitely. Got to be careful with those free samples.
I would assume, Seamus. You don't leave talent like that in the sidelines.
By the way, we should mention, Tom, before we sign off, Gerald Miller, the former warden of the Charleston Correctional Facility, pleaded guilty today to embezzling $2.4 million from John Q. taxpayer. The Bangor Daily News got the scoop today. All along throughout this is a case that was caught by the state auditor, Matt Dunlap, candidate for the 2nd Congressional District, caught by his auditors. And all along they had said that this was just a theft of over $10,000. I don't know if that was something in the statute, that I guess breaking that amount makes it a more severe crime. I think that's what it was, but also maybe an intentional effort to downplay the severity of it. But $2.4 million, as John Featherston said, that's a little bit more than 10,000. But this is another case where Merrill, I mean, 2.4 million is like child's play compared to some of these Medicaid profiteers that we can see looking in the federal data.
And this guy did it by credit card, Steve, didn't he? Did he make
Yes.
purchases for goods and services from the other person who flipped on him, right?
Yeah, there were a lot of P cards, is what they call them. The company cards were involved. He had some scheme that probably back in 1992 he would have gotten away with scot-free. But these days there's a little bit better accounting systems to check in on stuff like this. But the thing that really gets me about this one is he's going to keep his pension as part of his plea deal.
Unbelievable.
He keeps his taxpayer funded pension. He'll get a portion of whatever his final paycheck was every year for the rest of his life. And their argument was that he needs to continue to get his pension to pay back his restitution.
Right.
Well, why don't we just take his pension?
Yeah.
Why don't we just direct his pension towards his restitution and he can go get a job at a gas station or something?
Absolutely. That's amazing. That's amazing. But once again, when you're a state worker, you don't mess with pensions and benefit systems. I mean, this is the holy grail, especially, and I don't know what he was making a year, but especially if you got a job that nominally looks like it's not, the salary's not over the top, you load everything up on the benefit side and like, that's the cake right there. Just gross. All right. Steve, is that an official Mainewire merch shirt, by the way, which is available? Mainewire merch is available. Mine arrived today, as a matter of fact.
Oh, fantastic. No, this is not. This is a Dexter, Maine Red Hot Dog Festival shirt. This is a classic. This is a I don't know if the municipality of Dexter would be okay with us getting in on their hot dog merch turf. They might come after us, but I am the unofficial ambassador of the Red Snapper.
This is where Harlan Atkinson beat Steve straight out in the hot dog eating contest in 2007.
It's true.
8 days away from the debate.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. It's March 24th. We're in Bangor, Maine. We're starting at 7. Doors at 7. That's us, John. We're up at 7, right?
Okay. Looking forward to it.
And then we'll have the debate, and it'll be a great time. People can still get tickets, right? Because we keep.
I don't know if it's doors at 7. I think it's a little earlier than that. I think there's a VIP reception. Doors open. We'll be posting a schedule, but for people, what was on their tickets is what they should follow. I believe the debate itself will start at 7.
Okay. So doors March. We'll have all the details out. I promise. We're going to start pounding the details starting tomorrow. For Steve Robinson and John Featherston and Seamus Othot, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. right here on Mainewire TV.